Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. I thought that I would kind of start this by assuming that your knowledge level about the southern border so far away from here is at a kind of a low common denominator as told to you by our government, which is obviously eminently knowledgeable about what's going on down there. For one, you should probably believe right about now, I'm assuming, I don't know, that this is just all part of like a big phenomenon that is global with millions of people on the move, a historic number of people that just are on the move in the world. We've never seen anything like this, so many people on the move. That the American immigration system is broken. And so because so many millions of people are on the move and our immigration system is broken, we have a lot of people coming across, that there's like kind of something going on down there, a sort of a kerfluffle maybe down there at the border. That's what we're told repeatedly. Also that the last administration just left a mess. I mean, they really, if it was broken before the Trump administration, man, they really, they broke it even more. So that massive number of people in the world on the move just can't help but divert off into, some of them are just maybe a little more over at the southern border. So I'm here to disabuse you of all of that. It'll be an hour of what, disabusing? I don't know. Disabusements? I don't know. Because I have spent probably the bulk of the last 3 years, or a lot of the last 3 years, actually on the border. I live in Texas. It's easy for me to get down there. And the Center for Immigration Studies is happy to have me go down there to Mexico. I've spent a lot of time in Mexico, a lot of time in Central America and all over, usually with the immigrants. So I have interviewed probably thousands of immigrants that are on the way in here. And to me, you know, I'm a former journalist, a recovering journalist, I like to say. If you don't admit it first, you can't get better. That you know, you should always go to the primary sources about what's happening, and they're not in Washington by and large. They're down there, they're on their way in, and you have to talk to them to figure out what's going on. So the title of my book, or the subtitle of the book, includes the line that this is the greatest border crisis in U.S. history. And it is that. This is the biggest event, the longest mass migration event in American history. I believe that, you know, maybe 10 years from now, they'll be teaching this in secondary schools like they teach a little section in American history about Ellis Island, which is a museum that attracts 2 million people a year now, as like this sort of you know, momentous shift in the country. And I believe that this is where we are with this particular mass migration crisis, now starting its 4th consecutive year. We are in this has a definitive beginning and a middle, and we don't know what the end is yet. We're in the middle of it still. By way of illustration, I guess, I can recount a time where I was in a Mexican town called Ojinaga, which is just across from Presidio, Texas, in, you know, wilderness territory on both sides, looking for immigrants. This would have been about later in 2021, the first year of this, when it was obvious that something really unusual was going on. The numbers in this area were sky high, thousands compared to hundreds. So I went out there to see what was going on. I was looking for immigrants, couldn't find any because they're all in safe houses in Ojinaga. But I did happen to stumble across a cartel guy underneath the bridge, and he was partying. And he had a couple of hookers with him. And he had some coke. And he was taking a break from 10 days of smuggling on the Texas side, just back with a whole bunch of money. This was early on. This was before anybody had really written about that there was a mass migration underway. He had the coke, he had the women. He offered the women and the coke to me, by the way. Very nice guy. Generous, because he was just prosperous, newly prosperous, this guy. He had a crappy pickup truck still, but he was getting rid of that very shortly. He was going to be buying a brand new Ford F-150. He already had it on order, and like I said, well, you know, to what do you owe this great prosperity that you have all this business and you're making all this money? And he said, La invitación, which is the invitation. I said, well, what do you mean by that? I knew what he meant, but I had to get it on the record. He said, well, your president changed this policy. He got rid of deportation in the interior. There's no deportation anymore, and when that happened, it spread all over the place, and now we can't even handle all the business. La invitación. This is a guy, now normally you wouldn't take this guy to the bank. He would not be your notary or anything like that. He's a criminal, this guy. But he had no reason whatsoever to politically, he had no political motivation to lie to me about what he thought was the cause of his great success and all these numbers of people coming in and paying, by the way, $12,000 a head for his 10-day trips to Interstate 10, where they would do a big drop-off. That guy knows 20 times more than anybody here in DC on the Hill, any of those guys. Those are the people who are the primary sources. He was just one of hundreds that I have interviewed who all say the same thing. We are dropping our money on this because we know we're going to get in now. Your president is letting us in. This mass migration crisis, when I say it's the greatest in US history, I don't mean great that it's a good thing. I mean that it's a big thing. And the metrics tell the story. As of today, let me back up just a little bit. In a typical 10-year span before all of this happened, we might have in a total year 400,000 apprehensions by Border Patrol where they lay hands on a migrant. Not whether they get in and stay in or anything about that, just how many times. It shows how many people are coming and trying and making a stab at it. Maybe 500,000 on a banner year was typical for years on end. That sounds like a lot. Boy, do we wish we could go back to those good old days. But we now have, the first year we had 1.7 million of those apprehensions. Those are just illegal crossings between the border, between the ports of entry. It was the largest number in US history that first year. The next year, and by the way, it got very little attention for having broken that record. Since we started keeping records in 1960, Eisenhower ordered that we start tracking this. The next year, about 2.4 million, a latest new record. The year after that, and there are other people that are running and getting away that you can count as well, but just the ones that they apprehended, which is kind of how you take the pulse of border security, 3 million in 2023. If you tally it all up, and that's about 7.5 million times that a Border Patrol agent had to lay hands on an immigrant crossing the border. If you add 2 million that we think crossed between the ports of entry and got away clear, no Border Patrol hands, We think that's 2 million. You have a true picture of the volumes that we're talking about here. 10 million, 9.5 million. That's a lot of activity down on that border. Now, not all of those 10 million got in, but a lot did. In fact, a historic number did. 3.5 million in 36 months have been let into the country. In other words, it worked out. Another 2 million gotaways, and that's usually a conservative number. You're looking at 5.5 million just in the first 3 years, new people. That's a conservative estimate. We had never had anything like that. And what it looks and feels like down on that border is just beyond description. I'm going to try, for any of you who haven't seen the video of it, Fox News drones, but I mean, down in the middle of it, it is just, they're just pouring thousands into the country right over the river in. And on the other side, you've got Border Patrol agents, badges and guns, welcoming them in. Nobody's running. Most of them are not running. And you have cartel boatmen on their rubber rafts bringing the boats in, landing right next to, it's close to me and you, even closer. And the Border Patrol agents are saying, "How's it going, Manuel?" "Yeah, doing well, Frank." "Yeah, how many more you got over there?" 6 more loads, probably, maybe more. And it's this handoff. Now, I've been covering the border for years. Before when I was still a journalist, I covered the border, Mexico's civil drug war for 3.5 years or so for Hearst newspapers in San Antonio. I spent a lot of time on both sides of the border, and we've always had some illegal immigration. But I spent a lot of time down there. I saw it. Most of the time they were running away from Border Patrol. Border Patrol was running after them. So when you are like me with that experience and you go down there and you see this, it's just like kind of discombobulates you. You're just like, what? I don't understand. This just makes no sense. These guys have guns and badges, and the guy's right there. Go tackle them and get them, man, get them. And I asked a couple of guys, "Why aren't you tackling that guy right there?" And they're like, "Well, we're under orders to leave him alone." And that's the way it's been for 3 straight years down there. It's a welcome wagon, it's a welcoming committee, and they built a conveyor belt system of transportation to move all of those people into the interior of the nation. It roars 7 days a week, all day long. Border Patrol brings them in, drops them off at an NGO, like a non-governmental organization. So there'll be a Border Patrol bus pulling up and a Greyhound bus right here. They pull up, empty out, board here, and it just goes like that into the interior all day long. There's flights happening as well. That's a little bit what it looks like. If you haven't seen the video, there is plenty of video out there about that'll kind of give you a sense of just how massive this is. As to the narrative, I'll just say it's a narrative. Well, there's the whole world is just filled. The whole global bloodstream is really pumping with historic numbers. There's wars and things and climate change and all this really kind of driving, and of course some of them are going to divert off more than normal onto our border, which is broken, is a complete lie. It's a complete fabrication. And I base that on interviews with thousands of immigrants. When I talk to them, I always ask, why are you coming and why are you coming now? The first question the first answer will often be something like, well, I just want a job, I want to work. Or, somebody was mean to me back home. But if you just drill a little bit past the first layer, they'll tell you they heard that the Biden administration, the American president, was letting everyone in. That's it. It's not complex. There is no complexity about this at all. It's really very simple.